Welcome to SciFi Humanity, where we delve into the most extraordinary stories of human resilience, adaptability, and sheer tenacity. Today, we explore a tale that shatters all preconceived notions. What if the galaxy's fiercest warriors underestimated the most unassuming species? In Alien Soldiers Underestimate Humans, the universe's most dangerous warriors, we witness how those who thought themselves invincible came face to face with an unexpected and terrifying reality. What happens when the seemingly weak turn out to be the galaxy's deadliest? Stay with us as we uncover the chilling truths that make humans the most dangerous warriors the universe has ever known. Got to be kidding me. Zark's Thor snorted, his tentacles rippling with barely contained mirth. These humans are supposed to be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They looked like they'd struggle to open a jar of nutrient paste. The gathered Kate Zari warriors erupted into a cacophony of clicks, chirps, and warbles, their version of laughter, their massive forms covered in iridescent scales and sharp bony protrusions shook with amusement. Commander Vexnay, a battle-hardened veteran with more scars than scales, silenced them with a sharp hiss. Her compound eyes glittered dangerously as she addressed the group. "Laugh while you can, you overgrown larva," she growled, her mandibles clicking in annoyance. "But I've seen what these soft skins can do. Trust me, you won't be laughing when they're done with you." This, of course, only made the soldiers laugh harder. Sax Thor wiping a glob of mucus from his eye stalks. Hey, even alien ballasers need a good cry laugh. Sometimes managed to wheeze out, "Oh, come on, Commander. What are they going to do? Bore us to death with their pathetic lifespans, drown us in their weird water-based bodily fluids." Vexnay's exoskeleton seemed to darken, a sure sign of her growing irritation. "You think this is funny? Let me tell you a story, you ignorant grubs, a story that'll make your egg sac shrivel up and hide inside your thorax." The laughter died down, replaced by curious chirps and the occasional nervous shuffle. Even the most thick-headed J-G-A-G-H knew better than to completely ignore the commander when she used that tone. Vex's antennae twitched as she began her tale. "It was during the Battle of Nexus Prime we thought we had those humans cornered, outnumbered, outgunned, trapped on a dying planet with no hope of rescue." She paused, her compound eyes scanning the now silent room. "We were wrong. So very, very wrong." Flashback to Nexus Prime, 3 galactic standard cycles ago. The planet's twin suns hum low on the horizon, bathing the battlefield in an eerie blood-red glow. Smoke billowed from the ruins of what had once been a thriving human colony. Now it was little more than a wasteland of twisted metal and shattered dreams. The commander, Vexen, a then just a lowly foot soldier, crouched behind the smoking wreckage of a human transport vehicle. Her carapace was caked with dirt and gore, some of it her own, most of it belonging to the unfortunate souls who'd crossed her path. "Status report," she barked into her comlink, her mandibles clicking furiously. The response came back garbled and filled with static weave. Then cornered India, central hub, but heavy resistance, casualties mounting. Vexen cursed in her native tongue, a sound that would have made even the most hardened human sailor blush if they could understand it. That is, this was supposed to be an easy victory, a quick strike to show these uppity humans their place in the galactic pecking order. Instead, it had turned into a bloodbath for every human they killed. It seemed like 2 more popped up to take their place. It was like fighting a hydra made of flesh and bone and an infuriating refusal to just lay down and die already fall back to my position. Vexnay ordered, "We'll regroup," and though her words were cut short by a deafening explosion, the ground shook and a massive fireball bloomed in the direction of the KH Zari command post. Vexnay's antennae drooped in shock as she watched their most heavily fortified position go up in flames. What in the name of the Hive Queen just happened? She screeched into her comlink. The answer came not from her fellow soldiers, but from a scratchy human voice that had somehow hijacked their communication frequency that my dear bug-eyed friends drawled. The voice, thick with an accent Vexnay would later learn was called Southern, was the sound of why all royally screw in the pooch. Vexnay's mandibles worked furiously as she tried to process this new development. "Who is this? How did you access this channel? The human's laughter crackled through the comlink. Well, now that'd be telling, wouldn't it? Let's just say we've got a few tricks up our sleeves, or we would if your trigger-happy boys hadn't blown most of our sleeves off. Another explosion rocked the battlefield, this one closer to Vexnay's position. She ducked instinctively, her exoskeleton scraping against the charred metal of her cover. "You're insane," she hissed. "You're destroying your own planet." Darlin the human drawled, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "If we can't have it, ain't no way in hell we're letting you ugly suckers. Keep it. Consider this our way of saying thanks for the hospitality." XAS, mind raced. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Humans were weak, fragile creatures. They weren't supposed to fight like this with a reckless abandon that bordered on suicidal. "Fall back," she screamed into her comlink, "all units. Fall back to the ships, we're leaving this high, forsaken rock." The human's voice came back, filled with mock disappointment. "Are we leaving so soon? But we were just getting to know each other. Tell you what, next time you feel like invading, why don't you give us a call first? We'll put on a real Texas barbecue for ya. Might even let you be the main course." As Vexnay scrambled towards the evacuation point, dodging debris and trying not to think about how many of her fellow soldiers wouldn't be making it off this rock. She couldn't shake the feeling that they grossly underestimated these humans. It was a mistake she vowed never to make again. Back in the present, the caged Zari soldiers listened with a mixture of disbelief and growing unease. Zax Thor, his earlier bravado, somewhat deflated, raised a tentacle hesitantly. "Beat but that's just one battle," he protested weakly. Surely it was a fluke. Vex's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile, if smiles were made of nightmares and razor-sharp fangs. "Oh, my sweet summer larva, that was just the beginning." She began to pace, her clawed feet clicking against the metal floor of the briefing room. "You see, that battle taught us something crucial about humans, something that makes them more dangerous than any species we've ever encountered." The commander paused for dramatic effect, her compound eyes sweeping across the room. Humans are adaptable in ways that defy logic and spit in the face of evolution itself. A confused murmur rippled through the assembled soldiers. "Adaptable? Weren't all species adaptable to some degree?" "Vexen," continued, her voice taking on an almost reverent tone. "Think about it. Most species, including us, evolved to fit our environments over 1,000s, even millions of years. Humans, they look at a hostile environment and say, 'Challenge accepted, bitch.'" She pulled up a holographic display showing various human achievements throughout history. Too cold, they invent clothes and central heating. Too hot, air conditioning. Can't fly, build machines that can't breathe underwater, strap tanks of air to their backs and dive in anyway. The soldiers watched in growing amazement as the display cycled through images of humans conquering every conceivable environment, from the depths of their oceans to the vacuum of space. "But here's the real kick," of Xnay said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "They don't just adapt their environment. They adapt themselves." The holographic display shifted to show human medical advancements, prosthetic limbs, artificial organs, gene therapy. Lose a limb, they'll build a new one. Organ failure, they'll grow you a fresh one, or stick a machine in there to do the job. Heck, they're even figuring out how to rewrite their own genetic code. Zax Thor, his earlier bravado all but evaporated, raised a trembling tentacle. But that's impossible. No species can change that fast. Vexnay fixed him with a stare that could have frozen a sun. Impossible. Ha! Humans eat impossible for breakfast and crap out miracles. By lunchtime, she pulled up another image, this one showing a human settlement on a world that, by all rights, should have been uninhabitable. "See this? This is new anchorage on Hoth 9, average temperature, cold enough to freeze your egg sacs off, atmosphere thin enough to make you pass out, if you so much as think about breathing. And yet there they are, building cities and breeding like rabbits." The commander's voice took on a tone of grudging admiration. "You know what they call this hellscape, a fixer-upper with great views. I swear these humans are either the bravest or the craziest species in the galaxy, probably both." The young soldier in the back, her carapace still gleaming with the sheen of recent molting, clicked her mandibles nervously. "But Commander, if they're so adaptable, why haven't they conquered the galaxy already? Vex's antennae twitched in what might have been amusement. Ah, now that's the real question, isn't it? And the answer is both simple and terrifying. She pulled up a final image, a lush, blue-green world that every soldier recognized instantly: Earth, the human homeworld. They haven't conquered the galaxy, Vexina said softly, because they're too busy trying to conquer themselves. The rune fell silent as the implications of that statement sank in. Vexina continued, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and fear. Imagine a species so competitive, so driven, that they spend most of their history fighting each other. They've turned war into an art form, conflict into a science. And now, just when they finally started to unite and look to the stars, here we come, giving them a common enemy. She clicked off the holographic display, plunging the room into darkness, broken only by the glow of bioluminescent panels and the soldiers' own phosphorescent markings. Make no mistake, Vexina said, her voice cutting through the gloom. Humans are dangerous not because they're stronger or faster or tougher than us, but because they simply refuse to accept limitations. To them, the impossible is just a challenge they haven't overcome. Yet, the commander's eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire as she delivered her final warning. So laugh if you want, underestimate them at your peril. But remember this: in all the galaxy, humans are the only species crazy enough to look at certain death and say, "Hold my beer." The room remained silent for a long moment after Vexina finished speaking. Then slowly, nervously, Zack's Thor raised a tentacle again. Commander, what's a beer?" Vexina's mandibles clicked in what might have been a sigh. "Trust me, soldier, you don't want to know." As the briefing dispersed, the caged Zari soldiers filed out in uncharacteristic silence, their earlier bravado replaced by thoughtful and somewhat nervous clicks and chirps. Vexa watched them go, her compound eyes unreadable. Once the last soldier had left, she turned to her second-in-command, a grizzled veteran named Krezek. "Well, do you think they got the message?" Krezek's antennae twitched in what passed for a shrug among their species. "Hard to say, Commander. You know how young soldiers are all bravado and bluster until they're face-to-face with the enemy." Vexina nodded, her exoskeleton creaking slightly as she moved to look out the viewport. The vast expanse of space stretched out before her, dotted with the twinkling lights of distant stars and the ominous silhouettes of warships. "They'll learn," she said softly. "One way or another, they'll learn." Krezek moved to stand beside her, his own battle-scarred carapace, a testament to years of hard-fought campaigns. "You really think the humans are that dangerous?" "I mean, I've heard the stories," but Vexen turned to face him, her compound eyes reflecting the starlight. "Krezek, old friend, let me tell you another story, one that I've never shared before, because, quite frankly, I'm still not sure I believe it myself." She gestured to a pair of seats, and they both settled in a process that involved much clicking of exoskeleton and careful arrangement of limbs. "It was about a cycle after the Battle of Nexus Prime," Vexina began, her voice taking on a distant quality. "I was part of a reconnaissance mission to a human-controlled world. We were supposed to gather intelligence, assess their defenses, the usual pre-invasion prep work." Krezek nodded, his antennae twitching with interest. Everything was going according to plan. We'd managed to infiltrate one of their military bases disguised as maintenance drones. And then Vexina paused, her mandibles working as if trying to find the right words. "And then we saw him in Krezak," prompted a human soldier, but not like any we'd seen before. This one was more machine than man." Vexina's eyes seemed to lose focus as she recalled the memory. "He moved with a fluidity that shouldn't have been possible for something made of metal and circuits. His arms were weapons, not holding weapons, but actual integrated weapon systems. And his eyes, by the Hive Queen, his eyes glowed with an inner light that made my carapace want to crawl right off my body." Krezek listened in rapt attention, his own antennae quivering with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. "But here's the thing that really got me." Vexina continued. "The other humans, the normal ones, they weren't afraid of him. They treated him like just another soldier, joked with him, slapped him on the back, which, let me tell you, made a clang that still haunts my nightmares." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "I overheard one of them talking about the augmentation program Krezak. They're not just adapting their environments or building better weapons. They're adapting themselves, voluntarily turning themselves into living weapons. Kryzak's mandibles clicked rapidly, the cage Zari, equivalent of a low whistle. That's insane. No sane species would do that to themselves. Vexnay nodded grimly. Exactly. And that's what makes them so dangerous. They don't think like us. Don't have the same limitations or fears to them. The line between biology and technology is more of a suggestion than a rule. She leaned back in her seat, her exoskeleton creaking slightly. You know what really keeps me up at night, though? The thought that what we saw might just be the tip of the iceberg. If they're doing this openly in military bases, imagine what they're working on in their secret research facilities. Kryzak was silent for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, he spoke, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. So what do we do, Commander? How do we fight an enemy that's constantly changing, constantly adapting? Vexnay's mandibles clicked in a grim approximation of a smile. We adapt to, old friend, we learn, we evolve, and we pray to whatever gods might be listening that it's enough. She stood up, her exoskeleton, creaking slightly with the movement. But first, we need to make sure our soldiers understand what they're up against. No more of this humans are weak nonsense. They need to know the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. Kryzak nodded, rising to join her, agreed. But do you think they'll believe us? I mean, some of these stories sound almost too fantastical to be true. Vexnay's compound eyes seemed to glitter with a mix of amusement and resignation. Oh, they'll believe because we're going to show them. 2 days later, the KH-Zari battle cruiser Hive's Vengeance hung in high orbit around a nondescript brown planet. The assembled soldiers, including a still skeptical Zak Thor, crowded around viewports and holographic displays. Vexnay's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. Pay attention. Laver brains. What you're about to see is classified footage from our intelligence division. If I catch anyone recording this or spreading it around, I'll personally rip out your antennae and feed them to you. Understood. A chorus of affirmative clicks and chirps answered her. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a grainy image of what appeared to be a human military installation. The footage was shaky, clearly taken by a concealed camera. This Vexen, a narrated is Firebase Echo on the human colony world of New Thermopylae, population officially 0, unofficially. Well, watch and learn. The image zoomed in on a group of humans going about their daily routines. At first glance, they looked normal enough, if you could call any human normal. But as the camera focused on individuals, the soldiers began to notice oddities. One human lifted a crate that should have been impossible for a being of that size to move. Another seemed to shimmer slightly, their outline blurring as if they weren't quite solid. A third moved with a speed and grace that made even the agile Kajiri soldiers look clumsy by comparison. What? What are we looking at? Commander Zak Thor's voice quavered slightly. In the future of human warfare, Vexnay replied grimly, or at least one possible future: enhanced strength, adaptive camouflage, augmented reflexes. And that's just what we can see on the surface. The footage shifted, showing a human in what appeared to be a medical bay as the assembled KH-Zari watched in horrified fascination. The human's arm transformed metal and circuitry flowed like water, reshaping the limb into a weapon that hummed with barely contained energy. A night integration, Vexnay explained, her voice tight. Billions of microscopic machines working in harmony with human biology. They can reshape their bodies at will, adapt to almost any environment or situation in real time. A collective shudder ran through the assembled soldiers. The idea of willingly allowing machines to infest one's body was so alien, so utterly repugnant to caged Zari sensibilities, that many found it difficult to even process. But that's abominable. One young soldier chittered. How could they do that to themselves? Vexnay's laugh was devoid of any real humor. You're thinking like a caged Zari. Humans don't see it as a violation or a loss to them. It's an upgrade and evolution. The footage continued, showing more examples of human augmentation and adaptation. Soldiers with built-in armor plating, others who could interface directly with their weapons and vehicles, some who seemed to defy the laws of physics, manipulating energy fields with a thought. As the presentation came to an end, Vex Nay addressed the stunned soldiers. Now, do you understand this is what we're up against? A species that views their own bodies as just another tool to be improved, another frontier to be conquered. She paused, letting her words sink in. But here's the real kicker. This footage, it's 3 years old. Imagine what they've come up with since then. The silence that followed was profound. Even Zax's Thor, usually never at a loss for words, seemed struck dumb. Finally, Krizak spoke up. So what's our strategy? Commander, how we fight an enemy like this? Vex Nay's mandibles clicked in what might have been a grim smile. We adapt, we learn, and most importantly, we stop underestimating them. She pulled up a new holographic display, this one showing a map of known human territory. Our first step is to gather more intelligence. We need to know everything we can about their capabilities, their weaknesses, their plans. The commander's voice took on a tone of grudging admiration. And then we start thinking like humans. We need to be more creative, more flexible in our strategies, no more relying solely on overwhelming force or superior numbers. She turned to face the assembled soldiers, her compound eyes gleaming with determination. Make no mistake, this will be the fight of our lives, but we are case. Sorry. We've faced extinction before and survived. We'll do it again. A ripple of agreement ran through the crowd, and Tani waving and mandibles clicking in a show of solidarity. Vex Nay nodded, satisfied, dismissed, and remember, everything you've seen here is classified loose mandibles, sync hives as the soldiers filed out, many still visibly shaken by what they'd witnessed. Krizak approached Vex Nay. Well, old friend, he chittered softly. I think you made your point. I haven't seen the troops this rattled since the hive wars. Vex Nay's antennae twitched in acknowledgement. Good. A little fear is healthy, keeps you alert, keeps you alive. Krizak was silent for a moment, his compound eyes focused on the slowly rotating holographic display of human space. Do you really think we can win this, Commander, against an enemy that seems to rewrite the rules of biology and physics on a whim? Vex Nay's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Win. I'm not sure that's the right word anymore. Old friend, survive, perhaps adapt. Certainly. She turned to face her second in command, her voice taking on a tone that was part determination, part resignation. But here's the thing about humans that I've learned, Krizak. They're not just dangerous because of their technology or their adaptability. They're dangerous because deep down, they're not that different from us. Krizak and Tane twitched in confusion. How do you mean they're survivors? Vex Nay explained. Just like us. They've faced extinction-level events, wars that should have wiped them out, environmental disasters that should have ended their civilization, and every single time they've come back stronger. She gestured to the holographic display where tiny pinpricks of light represented human colonies and outposts. Look at how they spread, how they thrive in environments that should be lethal. They're driven by the same thing that drives us, the need to ensure their species survives. No matter the cost, Krizak absorbed this in silence, his compound eyes reflecting the soft glow of the holographic stars. So what do we do? He finally asked Vex, and his mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile, if smiles were made of determination and just a hint of madness. We learn from them. We push ourselves beyond our limits, and maybe, just maybe, we find a way to coexist. She turned back to the display, her voice taking on a tone of grim humor. After all, if we can't beat them, we might as well join them. Who knows, in a few 1,000 years, we might even be thanking them for pushing us to evolve. Krizak chittered in surprise. Commander, that's dangerously close to heresy against the hive mind. Vex Nay's laugh was short and sharp. Oh, Krizak, after what we've seen, I think we're well past worrying about heresy. We're in uncharted territory now. She reached out her clawed hand, passing through the holographic representation of Earth. And if there's one thing humans have taught us, it's that uncharted territory is where the real adventures begin. As they stood there contemplating the vast expanse of space and the uncertain future it held, neither Vex Nay nor Krizak noticed the small metallic insect that scuttled across the ceiling. Its tiny cameras recorded everything, transmitting the data back to receivers light years away in a top-secret facility on Earth. A group of humans, some fully organic, some decidedly not, watched the exchange with great interest. Well, one of them said, his cybernetic eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Looks like the bugs are finally catching on another human. This one's seemingly normal until you notice the subtle shimmer of nanites just beneath her skin. Smiled. Took them long enough think we should introduce ourselves properly. The first human leaned back, a grin spreading across his face. Now, where would be the fun in that? Let's see how much more they can figure out on their own. After all, he gestured to a holographic display of their own, showing the vast network of human colonies, research stations, and military outposts spread across the galaxy. Oh, dot. The game's only just beginning. As the KHRE battlecruiser Hive's Vengeance prepared to jump to its next destination, Vexnay couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. It was an irrational thought they were alone in this system. Their stealth systems were top of the line, and no human ship could possibly have followed them undetected. And yet, she shook her head, mandibles clicking in self-admonishment. This whole situation had her on edge, jumping at shadows. The humans were formidable, yes, but they weren't omniscient or omnipresent. Were they? As the ship's engines powered up for the jump to hyperspace, Vexnay made a mental note to increase their cybersecurity protocols, just in case, after all, in a universe where humans could rewrite their own biology and merge with machines. Was anything truly impossible anymore? The thought both terrified and exhilarated her, and as the stars stretched into lines of light around them, Vexnay realized that for the first time in her long military career, she had absolutely no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain. It was going to be one hell of a ride. As the alien soldiers learned, underestimating humanity was their greatest mistake. From the battlefields of Nexus Prime to the farthest reaches of space, the truth became clear. Humans are a force unlike any other, driven by a relentless will to overcome any obstacle. But the question remains, how will the galaxy respond to a species that refuses to accept limitations? Will they unite in fear or find a way to coexist with these formidable beings? Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from the edge of the unknown, right here on SciFi Humanity. Until next time, remember, never underestimate the human spirit.